In Adventure Time, Finn and his adopted brother Jake took it upon themselves to defend the land of Ooo from all sorts of threats, and as the series went on, Finn grew on from being a starry-eyed adventurer to someone who'd been hardened by the life of constant battle, yet still remained super upbeat. He never lost the spark that made him who he was, even when he was confronted by his incredibly disappointing father. But regardless of where he came from, Finn would eventually be recognised as Oo's greatest hero. Hi, I'm Lydia, and come along with me as we go through the timeline of Finn. And along the way, you may just hear from some of your favourite YouTubers.
Adventure time!
Being born on Hub Island. When the series first started, fans were told that Finn was the last human in Ooo, and that the species had all but extinct after the Great Mushroom War centuries earlier. But that doesn't really explain where he came from, seeing as that there were no other humans to actually make him. And so, as viewers would eventually find out, we would see that Finn was most certainly not the last of his kind.
Humans? There's so many.
The islands of the coast of Ooo were populated by humans with incredibly advanced technologies, the progeny of those who survived the nuclear war. No one was allowed on or off the island, and this was enforced by super soldiers called Seekers. Finn's parents were Minerva Campbell, a selfless physician, and Martin Mertens, a notorious con artist. Martin made a living by tricking people into believing that he can get them off the island, but secretly he was alerting the Seekers and pocketing the money. But this grift eventually backfired when he is forced to show some gangster granny how to get off the island personally. But during the attempted escape, a Seeker broke his legs and he was then sent to a hospital where he met Minerva, and the two quickly hit it off, with Martin winning her over with his boyish charm.
You saw my underwear.
They do say that opposites attract, and in this case, that's definitely true. As they start dating, move in together, and it's not too long until little Finn comes along. The family together are wholesome and happy, until someone he wronged in the past came back to bite him in the butt. While escaping his past mistakes, Martin ran away with infant Finn in tow. They boarded a boat where they were attacked by the Guardian, the giant protector of their islands. Its job was to prevent threats from getting in as well as stopping the islanders from getting out. Martin heroically climbed aboard the Guardian and destroyed its eye, but the resulting blast threw him into the sea, separating Martin and Finn. Now all alone, Finn survived by eating a breadstick wand as his raft drifted to Ooo. Meanwhile, Martin was rescued by pirates and suffered total amnesia due to the blast, and it wasn't until much later in the series that Finn would find out the truth about his history and where he came from, eventually meeting his biological parents. Meanwhile, a Seeker called Susan Strong was sent to find our Finn, but more on her a little bit later. Getting adopted. Finn may have had the heart of an adventurer deep inside of him, but he was still a baby. And surviving alone in the wilds of Ooo was not going to work out particularly well for him, and luckily the universe had other plans for this hero in training. While waddling around in the woods, Finn made a boom boom right on a leaf, and the little guy stumbled and fell backwards into that same poop. And that's where he was found by Joshua and Margaret, the father and mother of Jake and Jermaine. Even though it wasn't the most dignified meet cute, they adopted him and raised him like their very own son. This was how the formidable bond between Finn and Jake was formed. More than that, Joshua and Margaret raised Finn and Jake to be heroes and adventurers. Their two didn't end up like that by accident. Becoming the defender of Ooo. When Finn and Jake moved out on their own, they ended up in a treehouse that used to belong to Marceline the Vampire Queen, and it quickly became their sanctuary, and the place where they recovered from each adventure with their good friend Bimo. Once Finn and Jake were out on their own, they worked to become the heroes they'd always dreamt of. That meant getting out there and fighting a good fight without question, and therefore becoming the staunchest defenders of Ooo. But don't be mistaken into thinking that they knew what they were doing all the time. Finn was more of a learn as you go kind of guy, and so never really had a plan. His general method of fighting was to simply dive into pretty much any situation, swing his sword and taking out whatever the threat was. Fortunately, Jay tended to be a bit more thoughtful and bailed him out quite frequently, but at least he showed a whole lot of passion for fighting for the better cause. Yes, Finn and Jake were constantly saving the residents of Ooo from all sorts of weird and dangerous threats. Large, small, and even invisible monsters. And although we don't have giant monsters trying to stomp on us in our world, we do have invisible threats trying to attack us every day online. And unfortunately, Finn and Jake aren't around to save us, or even real for that matter. But luckily, NordVPN is there to save us from the dangers online by shielding your data from snoopers and protecting you from various cyber attacks. NordVPN can connect to thousands of servers worldwide, allowing you to unlock TV shows and movies not available in your country. So if you want to watch Rick and Morty but it's not available on your Netflix, just connect to the UK server and up comes Rick and Morty. And for anyone living in the US, you do not have access to Star on Disney+, meaning that you're missing out on hundreds of episodes of Family Guy, American Dad, and Bob's Burgers. But with NordVPN, just connect to a server in the UK and voila, you've got access to tons of new animated content. And the great thing is that you can use it on up to 6 devices. So go to nordvpn.com/timelines or simply click the link in the description for an exclusive deal. Plus you get 1 month absolutely free. It's also completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Crushing on princesses. Ooh. A big part of the Adventure Time fandom was shipping. Fans just love to speculate which princess Finn would end up with, and the writers also love teasing potential romances, from Princess Bubblegum to Flame Princess. So to help me break down Finn's complicated love life, I've asked fellow YouTuber Sarcastic to give me a hand. Over on his fantastic channel, he has made several in-depth videos on Adventure Time shipping. So take it away, Sarcastic.
Thanks, Lydia. Throughout the show, Finn is teased with lots of women who are absolute fire, both literally and figuratively.
I think I have a crush.
Describing Finn's relationship, though, is a bit of a nightmare, as they evolve slowly throughout the show when they're not crashing and burning the fandom to the ground. But for the sake of simplicity, I will break them down in this section. Being the defender of Ooo made it easy to forget that Finn was just a kid. At the beginning of the series, he is only 12 years old, and by the end of it, he was a prehistoric 17. And being a teenage boy, bros weren't the only thing on his mind. With Finn's first case of trying to date out of his league being Princess Bubblegum, who he would spend the majority of the early series simping for, with the main obstacle to them getting together being PB's complete lack of interest. PB thought of him as just a friend, a good ally. She liked Finn, she thought he was a real righteous kid, and they would always be super close. But she is also 600 years old and pretending to be 16. Her dating a fun but immature 12-year-old was just never in the cards. Their relationship would grow and evolve throughout the course of the series. But by the time it was all said and done, Finn and Princess Bubblegum developed a deep platonic friendship. When Finn looks back on their relationship, it's not the weird maybes of how they could have dated, but the friendship they had built as they both grew and changed over the years, which I am super thankful for, as not enough shows just let guys and girls be friends. Also, it helped give us Bubbling, which I would trade 1,000 sobbing Finns for. While things never got Ice King awkward, Finn was kind of infamous for crushing hard and often. Thankfully, he wasn't locking any of them up in a dungeon. Ice King. So cheers for that low bar. Ultimately, Finn got over his crush for Princess Bubblegum. near instantaneously, I might add. He's still very much a teenager, as he went from a depressed mess only to get one hit from his new flame princess. And yes, making that pun is the actual reason she's a fire elemental. Honestly though, these two worked out about as well as the whole bubblegum situation did. That said, it was definitely a more destructive relationship, or in Finn's case, self-destructive. As after some, let's be polite and call them special dreams,
My body is engulfed in flames!
Finn manipulated and hurt Flame Princess to have more of them, causing Flame Princess to dump his ass.
I need some time alone.
Princess!
In spite of this, they would still have hints that the pair harbored some kind of feelings for each other towards the end of the series, but they would ultimately become friends again, as Finn, in a sign of growth, apologized, having realized why what he did was wrong.
You've grown up a lot, man. I forgive you.
And in spite of having all these different romances, not to mention the ones I didn't mention, like the Body Pillow, a Bee, and Huntress Wizard, by the end of the series, Finn was still single, which I am totally fine with, because Adventure Time showed that a character can be more than just their relationships, and I just love that. Honestly, I can talk about this show all day, but I know you have a video to finish, Lydia, so back to you.
Befriending Marceline. Meeting a vampire in any situation can be a little strange, particularly if you don't know if you're going to be a friend or a bit of food. They were investigating a creature of dark evil and found something completely different, a brand spanking new friend.
You two are pretty hardcore. I can appreciate that.
After centuries of emotional trauma, much of which was at the hands of her father, Marceline became a pretty tough nut. In truth, she was emotional, caring, and creative, and she eventually became one of Finn's closest friends and allies. Though truth be told, her relationship with Princess Bubblegum was far more defining for her. I would love to dive into Marceline and PB's relationship, so if you'd be interested in seeing that, then give this video a huge thumbs up, and if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help with the algorithm.
Thumbs up. Come on, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Meeting his hero and inspiration, Billy. Finn was not the Land of Ooze first heroic warrior and guardian. Before him, there was Billy, an iconic legend who inspired Finn massively. It was said that the great Billy defeated an evil ocean, rescued a whole lot of princesses, and slayed many monsters too. But over time, Billy started to believe that the war against evil was futile, and that was exactly how Finn found him, a beaten man who had given up on life. Meeting his hero proved to be a pinnacle moment for Finn's development into a legendary hero. In turn, Finn inspired Billy to return to action and take on his old enemy, the Lich. But unfortunately, this led on to be his ultimate downfall. Rivalry with the Lich. Every hero needs a defining villain, and for Finn, that was the Lich, an ancient cosmic being that embodied the inevitability of death in all things. He was the first foe of Billy, who defeated the Lich and imprisoned him for many years. The Lich would eventually get loose, kill Billy via possession, and wear the hero's corpse as a garish costume to torment Finn. Despite being a colourful cartoon, Adventure Time can get really dark. While the Lich was essentially an avatar of everything that was evil, Finn was an avatar of everything that was good, so making one the yin to each other's yang. After committing a number of atrocities, the Lich was finally defeated by Finn, who threw regeneration juice on him. This somehow turned him into a giant baby called Sweet Pea.
The Lich is super cute now, and he smells real neat.
Adopted by Mr. Pig and Tree Trunk, Sweet Pea still contained the evil power of the Lich inside of him, and still remained to be a potential threat that Finn and Jake kept an eye on. However, we are getting a little ahead of ourselves, as this happened around the same time as he met his father. And so, to discuss Finn's complicated relationship with his dad, as well as losing his arm, I've asked Saberspark to help me out. Not only is he a huge Adventure Time fan, he's also one of my favourite YouTubers. So take it away, Saberspark.
Thanks, Lydia. Adventure Time often looked into the future, different timelines, and even alternate realities. But one consistent point was Finn missing his right arm. Several looks into his future showed him missing it or having a prosthetic arm of some kind. Finn's path of losing his arm started with him breaking his demon blood sword and replacing it with a cursed grass sword.
The grass sword will be part of you for all eternity!
But Finn quickly accepted this fate, realizing that he could harness the power of the grass sword.
Now that you've accepted it, you can control it.
Yeah, this is really cool.
But one power he hadn't quite harnessed was a sense of self and recovery from his abandonment issues, questioning exactly where he came from, who his parents were, and why they left him. Now, Finn loved his adoptive parents, but those thoughts about his human parents always lingered. And while he wouldn't learn the answers to all of his questions just yet, he would finally meet his father. When Finn first discovered that his father was held in a place called the Crystal Citadel, a prison that holds the most dangerous criminals of the multiverse, Finn thought that this must have been an egregious mistake. There was no way his dad was a bad person. And so, Finn set out to go rescue him. Once Finn saves him from his crystal cage, he asked his father why he abandoned him. To which Martin responds,
"Who knows, like, maybe you left me."
Not exactly the heartfelt reunion Finn expected, and Martin's credibility only dipped when he abandoned his son again when the Lich escaped from his cell. But not wanting to lose his dad once more, Finn chased him up a stem. But Father of the Year asked another prisoner to cut it. However, a defiant Finn refused to let him get away so easily. He held on so tight that his arm was torn off, and thus fulfilling the show's foreshadowing. Now, it seems that anytime Martin popped up throughout the series after this, he would often be in trouble with the law. He was last seen traveling into the far reaches of space with the Catalyst Comet after Finn turned down its offer. But Lydia will talk about that here in a bit. Anyway, back to our good guy Finn and his arm. Through a series of events, Finn's arm grew back with the help from a single bee. Again, it's a strange show, but that's why we all love it. After this, Finn gets a shiny new sword called the Finn Sword. And this just opens up a whole new chain of events that I could go into more about. But I guess I should probably hand this back to Lydia now, so hey, Lydia, thanks for having me. All yours.
Finn the God. While a space entity called Orgalorg steals PB's ship and blasted it into space, Jake and Finn cling onto it, and when on board, Orgalorg reveals his true form, sending Finn hurling through space. And who does he come across while drifting through the cosmos? His father, of course, who is in the mouth of a giant moth.
Hey, spaceman.
Huh, Dad?
Martin helps Finn by telling him to grab onto his dirty jockstrap, and while flying through space they witness Orgalorg eat a comet, so Finn jumps in to free it, and while inside its mouth, the grass sword arm re-emerges and dices the Orgalorg apart and frees the comet. The comet then opens up and talks to our hero. It reminds Finn that he was once a comet too, in a past life, who crashed down onto Earth and turned into a beautiful butterfly. The comet then offers Finn to join it and become the end and the beginning of everything, and to see things he couldn't possibly imagine. But Finn turns the offer down.
I feel like I put a lot of work into this meat reality. I'd like to see it through.
Martin, however, accepts the comet's deal, leading Finn and his dad to have a heart-to-heart where Finn asks him why he's always running away from everything, to which Martin responds,
You burn enough bridges, the only direction to move is forward.
And it's here that Finn realizes that there is no changing him and accepts his father for who he is.
Goodbye, son!
Bye, Dad.
Finn is then saved by a guy called Banana Man, and him and Jake return home. Finn's robotic arm. A while after returning to Earth, his grass arm would sprout out and bond itself onto the Finn sword. This bizarrely created a grass-type person who looks just like Finn and even believes he's Finn too.
I'm Finn Mertens, man. I'm a 100% hero. Everyone knows that.
However, Grass Finn is a lot more unhinged and prone to violence, and on top of this, he is dealing with the dilemma that he's not the real Finn either. He names himself Fern and sets off to find himself, and we'll catch up with him a bit later on, I promise you. Finn would eventually get a shiny new robot arm, courtesy of Princess Bubblegum, that's capable of so many awesome functions. Meeting his mother. So, do you remember that seeker Susan Strong I mentioned earlier at the beginning? Well, she was given a task to find Finn, but she crashed her ship along the way and lost her memory. But don't worry, as she regained some bit of it back and finally found Finn, so she took him and Jake to the Founders Island to finally meet his mother. When we get there, Finn is shocked to find that his mother is basically a giant computer, and through a flashback we learn that a plague wiped out most of the island's population, with most of the healers having died too. Minerva Sick herself selflessly uploaded her consciousness to the web, allowing her to be put into the minds of many robot bodies, all in order so she could help others without dying herself. As a result, she saved the island residents from total extinction. With her son finally back in her life, she becomes overly protective and refuses to let him off the island, believing he's far safer with her. But as we all know, Finn craves the sweet, sweet nectar of adventure and danger, so he shows her all of the wonderful things he's accomplished in OO.
You grew up to be a helper too.
Minerva comes to realize that her son, like her, has helped countless people, letting him finally go back home to his place in OO. Fern returns. Over the time he's been away, he has grown jealous of Finn and planned to be the one and only true Finn.
I could become the only Finn.
So Fern locks him up and plans to take his place, but using his fancy new robot arm, Finn breaks out of his prison and accidentally triggers his robotic arm to dice Fern up during a scuffle, leaving his tattered leafy remains to rain down on a mortified Finn. Naturally, this incident traumatized our hero greatly. However, we haven't seen the last of Fern, as his remains were soon collected by PB's uncle, Gumball. But more on that a little bit later. Befriending the Ice King. Before the Lich came along, Finn's other greatest rival was the Ice King. He was constantly kidnapping princesses, all of whom Finn and Jake then had to rescue. Compared to the Lich and his attempts to kill everything, the petty machinations of the Ice King seem kind of silly, but it turns out there was a reason for that. Ice King was originally a man named Simon Petrikov, who was researching the crown when the Great Mushroom War broke out. Despite it driving him insane, Simon used the power of the crown to protect himself and a young Marceline from the threats of this horrifying new world. This was why Marceline was so kind to him on many occasions. Finn, Jake, and the other residents of OO later learned this true truth about the Ice King. He became a sympathetic figure to many, if not a friend and ally to Finn. Eventually, the Ice King was freed from the influence of the crown and returned to being Simon after basically a millennium of ice-related insanity. The return of Fern and the arrival of Golb. Yeah, despite being shredded into a million pieces, Fern was revived by Gumball and now went by the name the Green Knight. In the final episode of the series, the gun war was heating up between Peebee and her uncle. So to put an end to the fighting, Finn and Jake gave everyone nightmare juice to put them into an unconscious world, or so they could hash out their differences. In this dream place, Finn wanted to set things straight with his grassy twin by explaining that they are two sides of the same coin. But Fern says he'll never understand what it's like to be him. It's only when Finn shows that they have a shared torment does Fern realise that they are not so different after all, and working together they defeat their repressed memories. Finn then removes the grass parasite attached to Fern, finally setting him free. When they awoke, Princess Bubblegum put an end to the fighting, which is great. What isn't so great, however, is that Fern had started to disintegrate. Things go from bad to worse when the ancient and evil Gulp arrived on the scene and swallowed the Ice King and Betty, and so a heroic Finn had to jump in to save them. Luckily, they were able to defeat it when Betty used the Ice Crown to merge herself with the Gulp, leaving Ooh behind. Fern's disintegration turned out to be a heartbreaking moment, with Finn honouring his dying wish by planting him at the location of the tree fort, which was previously destroyed by one of Gulp's monsters. The seedling immediately grew into a tree with the Finn sword embedded in it. Cutting 1,000 years into the future, new adventurers Shermie and Beth hear about this legend, climb the giant tree and claim the sword for themselves, therefore taking up Finn and Jake's heroic mantle. But if we then cut back, Finn and Jake continued to live their lives and went on many more adventures together. Also, humans arrived into Ooh and Finn was reunited with his mother. Travelling to distant lands. After the end of Adventure Time, there were 4-hour-long special episodes under the title Distant Lands, each one focused on a different character or set of characters. The second episode focused on Princess Bubblegum and Marceline on an adventure to the Glass Kingdom, and towards the end of the episode, a much older Finn appeared without Jake by his side. His brother, friend, and ally only appeared as a tattoo on Finn's chest. This was hugely heartbreaking for fans to see Finn and Jake separated. But one episode in particular really struck a chord with fans. The third part of Distant Lands showed a much older Finn dying and battling his way through dead worlds to reunite with Jake, who had died years earlier. It was quite the challenge, all thanks to New Death, the son of death and life. And while journeying through the adventure of the afterlife, he reunites with his adoptive parents in a really cute moment. As always, Finn was successful in his mission and found his brother and best friend. In the end, they returned to the mortal world via reincarnation to begin their new adventures. It was everything a fan would expect from these two lovely heroes. And so that comes to the end of Finn's timeline. Adventure Time is rich with deep lore and complex storylines, so this was a really Cliff Notes version. But do let me know in the comments which character you'd like to see covered next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.